My name is Margaret. I am 55 years old, and I have lived most of my life believing that love and sacrifice would be enough. I raised my only son, Ethan, alone after a car accident stole my husband from me when Ethan was just a boy. I worked long nights as a nurse, slept in empty beds, and skipped meals so my son could eat. Every wrinkle on my face carries the story of survival and motherhood. On Ethan's wedding day, I wore the only decent dress I owned. My heart swelled with pride as I watched him take vows. The boy I once rocked to sleep now standing as a man. Then came the moment that broke me. The bride, with her flawless hair and polished smile, waved her hand toward me and told her friends, "That's Ethan's hungry nanny." Laughter erupted like glass shattering. I froze, my fork suspended in midair. Hungry nanny. That was who I had become in her eyes. I searched for Ethan, begging with my gaze, waiting for him to defend me. But his eyes shifted away, shame or fear. I couldn't tell. I rose slowly, holding back tears, until I heard the bride whisper, "He'll never know the truth." The night air was cool as I stepped outside, but inside me burned a fire of humiliation. I leaned against the stone wall and tried to steady my breathing. I was not just a guest. I was his mother. How could she reduce me to nothing? Memories rushed in. I saw my younger self, exhausted from double shifts, patching Ethan's jeans at midnight, praying he would never feel poor. I remembered feeding him the last piece of bread while I drank only water, telling him I wasn't hungry. I remembered his small hand grabbing mine as he promised, "I'll always protect you, Mom." That promise haunted me now. I had sacrificed so much, but at that table tonight, when I needed him most, Ethan said nothing. The silence was louder than the laughter. Through the open door, I could still hear music, but I also heard her laugh, sharp, cold, and practiced. She stood with her bridesmaids, and for a brief second I saw her phone light up. My eyes caught the screen before she turned it away. A man's name, a heart at the end of the message. My chest tightened. She wasn't loyal, and she knew I had seen it. I stepped back into the hall, my hands trembling. The bride's smile widened as if she knew exactly what I had witnessed. She whispered something to her bridesmaids, and they laughed softly, their eyes darting in my direction. I stayed near the wall, watching closely. She leaned into Ethan, kissed his cheek, then slipped her phone into her bouquet. But the truth was already in my chest like a stone. That message wasn't innocent. She was hiding something, and I had seen too much. Her friends circled her like shadows. One giggled, saying, "She's got him wrapped tight. He'll never see it coming." They weren't admiring her. They were mocking him. Mocking me. I wanted to run to Ethan, shake him awake, but I knew he wouldn't believe me. Not tonight. He was too blinded by love and her practiced sweetness. Still, I couldn't stop myself from staring. Her eyes locked onto mine across the room. She tilted her head, almost daring me to speak. My heart pounded as she mouthed words I barely understood. Then she smiled slowly, as though she had just won a game I hadn't realized I was playing. Later, when the crowd thinned and the music softened, I found her standing alone in the hallway. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. "I saw your message. You're not being honest with Ethan. He deserves the truth." She turned slowly, her expression icy. Then she smirked. "You don't matter here. You're just some tired old woman. Don't ruin this for him, or for yourself." I swallowed hard. "You'll ruin him. He deserves better than a lie." Her laugh was sharp, almost cruel. "You think he'll listen to you? He belongs to me now. And if you try to interfere, I'll make sure he never looks at you the same way again." The air between us felt poisonous. She brushed past me like I was invisible, her perfume lingering like smoke. I rushed to Ethan, desperate to warn him, but when I tried, he snapped. "Not tonight, Mom. Please don't cause drama." Hours later, when it was time to leave, I reached for the family car door. The lock clicked. I looked up and saw her face through the glass, smiling as the car drove off without me. The night swallowed me as I stood alone on the sidewalk, my shoes pinching my feet, my heart heavier than ever. The streetlight flickered above me, casting shadows across the empty road. Ethan's laughter faded in the distance as their car sped away. I began walking. My body ached with each step, but the ache inside was worse. My mind replayed the sacrifices I had made. Every birthday cake I skipped for myself, every second job I worked to pay for his tuition, every holiday I spent alone so he could have joy. Had it all been forgotten? By the time I reached my small apartment, the city was quiet. I sank onto the bed, still in my wedding clothes, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own son's life. Then the phone rang. My hand shook as I answered. A man's voice came through, low and firm. "Margaret, if you want to know who your son really married, meet me tomorrow. I have something you need to see." I froze. My lips parted, but no words came. Who was he? And how did he know her? The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about that voice on the phone. I should have ignored it, but curiosity and fear pulled me out the door. At a small diner off Main Street, a man in his late 30s sat waiting, his face pale and tired. "You don't know me," he began, "but I know her. She's not who she says she is." I wanted to leave, but his words pinned me to the booth. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside were photos, my son's bride in another man's arms, kissing him like Ethan never existed. My stomach churned, but I couldn't look away. "She's using him," the man said. "Money, status, control, everything. And she's still seeing me." His voice shook with bitterness, but his eyes were steady. I gripped the pictures, fighting tears. My son had promised forever to a woman who was already betraying him. The man leaned closer. "If you love your son, you'll stop her before she destroys him." I left the diner with the photos clutched against my chest, my heart racing. But as I reached my apartment door, I froze. Ethan was inside, waiting, and he had already found the envelope. He stood in my living room holding the pictures I hadn't meant for him to see yet. His face was red, his hands trembling. "What is this, Mom?" His voice cracked like thunder. I tried to explain, but he cut me off. "You went behind my wife's back? You spied on her? You're trying to ruin my marriage?" I stepped forward, begging. "Ethan, please look at them. She's lying to you. She's cheating." "Stop," he shouted. His chest rose and fell fast, his eyes cold. "You've hated her from the start. Admit it." My throat tightened. "I don't hate her, Ethan. I love you. I just want to protect you." He slammed the envelope onto the table. "No. You want to control me. You can't stand that I'm married now." The words pierced like knives. My son, the boy I carried, the man I raised, looked at me as if I were the enemy. He pointed toward the door. "Get out." I packed my bag in silence, tears soaking the clothes I folded. But as I reached for my purse, something slipped out onto the floor, a credit card bill with my son's name on it. The charges were enormous. I sat on the bus with the bill in my hand, my stomach twisting. Thousands of dollars had been charged in a single month. Luxury stores, designer hotels, money draining from Ethan's account like water through a sieve. I thought about all the years I saved every penny for him. All the nights I sat at the kitchen table counting coins to pay his tuition. And now, the woman he trusted was draining it faster than he could earn it. I decided I needed proof, no one could deny. That night, I followed her. My chest pounded as I trailed her taxi to a hotel on the edge of town. I sat in the lobby, my hands clammy, waiting. An hour later, she walked in laughing, her hand clutched tightly around the arm of another man. They kissed openly before stepping into the elevator. My body shook with rage and despair. I wanted to run to Ethan immediately, but fear stopped me. If I told him again, would he throw me out of his life forever? I left the hotel in tears, the truth burning inside me. But 2 days later, she found a way to turn everything against me. It happened at a family dinner. The room was warm, filled with the scent of roasted chicken, and for a moment I felt almost safe. But then she spoke. Her voice wavered as she clutched her chest dramatically. Something's missing. My bracelet, it was right here. Everyone looked around, concerned. She pointed suddenly at me. You were near my things earlier, weren't you? The room went silent. My fork slipped from my hand. Are you accusing me of stealing? My voice cracked, but she didn't blink. Ethan stood quickly, his face torn between us. Mom, please tell me you didn't. I shook my head furiously. I would never. Ethan, you know me. But she pressed on. It's fine. She probably needed the money. We should just let it go. Her tone was falsely sweet, dripping with poison. The shame crushed me. I felt every pair of eyes on me, doubting, judging. For the first time, I couldn't breathe. Then, under the table, I felt a small hand slip me a folded note. I looked up. It was her cousin, her eyes full of quiet urgency. The note read, I believe you. Meet me later. I slipped out into the cool night air. The note clutched tight in my hand. My heart pounded as I walked to the small cafe her cousin had written on the back. She sat waiting in the corner booth, nervously stirring her coffee. I shouldn't be here, she whispered, her eyes darting to the door. But I can't watch what she's doing anymore. My breath caught. You know the truth? She nodded. She's been lying for years. She doesn't love Ethan. She loves control. Money. She thinks she's untouchable. Tears burned my eyes. Then help me. Please. She leaned closer, her voice low. She's already filing papers. If Ethan signs them, she'll have control over his bank accounts, his property, everything. Power of attorney. Once she has it, he's finished. My hands shook against the table. This was worse than I imagined. It wasn't just cheating, it was calculated. The cousin looked at me with fear. If we don't stop her soon, Ethan won't have anything left. I stared out the window, the weight of the world pressing down. And then, through the glass, I saw her standing across the street, watching us, smiling. The night Ethan collapsed, I thought my heart would stop too. 1 minute he was sitting at the dinner table, pale and distracted. The next his body gave out. The crash of his chair hitting the floor echoed in my ears. I rushed to his side, screaming his name. She stood frozen, her hand on her phone, more annoyed than frightened. At the hospital, I sat by his bed while machines beeped and doctors explained his ulcers were caused by stress. I held his hand, remembering the little boy who once clung to me after nightmares. Now he lay weak, drained, and trapped in a nightmare of his own making. She arrived with her designer purse swinging, her nails painted fresh. She sighed, scrolling her phone while doctors spoke about treatment. She didn't look at him once. My chest ached with anger. Later that night, a nurse pulled me aside. Her voice was low. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I overheard her in the hallway. She was talking to a man on the phone saying when she finished the job, all of this would be hers. My knees buckled. Was my son's life in danger? I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the hospital made me jump. The nurse's words replayed in my mind. each one heavier than the last. She wanted his inheritance. She wanted his life to crumble so she could collect the pieces. I knew I couldn't fight this alone. The cousin agreed to help, and so did the man from the diner. We met in secret, whispering in corners like criminals, but really we were the ones searching for justice. We made a plan. I could still hear Ethan's weak voice when he told me, "Mom, I'm fine. Stop worrying." He was blind, his love wrapping him in chains he couldn't break. My heart broke watching him fade under her shadow. We needed proof so undeniable, even Ethan couldn't ignore it. The cousin helped us record her conversations, her careless words dripping with greed. Each file we saved felt like a lifeline. But then one evening, as I left the hospital, I felt eyes on me. She was there, standing by the parking lot, her lips curled into a poisonous smile. She stepped closer, whispering, "If you think you can beat me, you're wrong. I'll ruin you first." Days passed like storms brewing. Ethan's vow renewal party was her idea, another way to tighten her grip. She wanted the world to see them as unbreakable. I knew this was my moment. Either I exposed her, or I would lose him forever. The hall glittered with flowers and lights. Guests smiled, clinking glasses, unaware of the battle brewing beneath the surface. My hands shook as I clutched the small recorder in my purse. I watched her glide down the aisle, her fake smile plastered on, her eyes daring me to act. When the vows began, I rose. My voice cut through the room. "Stop this." Gasps filled the air. All eyes turned to me. Ethan's face twisted in shock. I pulled the recorder out and pressed play. Her voice filled the hall. "Once I get his accounts, he's finished. He's nothing without me." Gasps turned to whispers. Her cousin stepped forward, confirming every lie. The ex showed the photos. The truth spilled out like a flood. She shrieked, lunging toward me, her mask shattered. Guests backed away as chaos erupted. And then the doors opened. Police walked in with papers in hand. The officers stepped forward, their voices steady. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for fraud and attempted theft." Her face twisted with rage as she screamed, clawing at the air, insisting it was all lies. But the evidence spoke louder than her words. Ethan stood frozen, his world collapsing. I saw the boy inside him break, the man inside him shatter. He looked at me, his eyes wet. "Mom, you tried to tell me." I didn't listen. I held his hand, even as he shook with shame. "You're still my son. We'll get through this." The crowd was silent, their stares heavy. The same people who once laughed at me now looked at me with something else, respect, maybe even guilt. The bride was dragged away, her screams fading into the night. When the hall emptied, Ethan and I sat together in the quiet. He leaned against me like he once did as a child. I stroked his hair and whispered, "It's over now." But in my heart, I knew it wasn't. Broken trust leaves scars. And though she was gone, the wound she left would take time to heal. The weeks after felt like walking through ashes. Ethan moved back into his old room for a while, his eyes tired but softer now. We talked, slowly piecing together what was left of us. He apologized every day, and though the pain was heavy, I forgave him. A mother's love bends, but doesn't break. I chose not to move into his house again. I needed peace. I needed to find myself outside of being only his mother. So I began volunteering at a women's shelter. There, I met women who had stories like mine, betrayal, lies, loss, but also strength, courage, and healing. One evening, as I stacked donated blankets, a soft voice called my name. I turned to see one of the bridesmaids, the same woman who once laughed at me, now with tears streaming down her face. "She treated me horribly too," she whispered. "I should have spoken up. I'm sorry." I placed my hand on hers and smiled gently. We all learn in our own time. Walking home that night, I felt lighter. I had been mocked, betrayed, and dismissed, but I had also risen. The truth had won. And so had I.